Hey everybody, I'm going to talk about coming to find out that I'm an alcoholic. And I didn't, in hindsight, have a normal relationship with alcohol when I started drinking, and I was a rule follower, so I was 21 years old. You might not have all of my story. There might be something that you can relate to, but I promise you somebody has your story, and they're in sobriety, and they're in recovery, and it's good, and life is peaceful. And again, we can do hard things even in sobriety. So to talk about finding out that I was an alcoholic, I actually have to go back to a very traumatic experience that I had when I was almost 24 years old. I was outside at a Dallas uptown type of bar. It's kind of like the to-do bar where you want to be, meet people, see people. And I remember standing at the bar. I had just gotten there with a friend of mine, and somebody next to me began talking to me. And my friend was there, and she was bored because nobody was talking to her. And I let her know, hey, point somebody out. I'm happy to go talk to them and bring them over if they're interested. Who do you find cute? She pointed somebody out, and I walked away, and I left my drink on the bar, and I went and grabbed them and came back over. The gentleman roofied my drink, and that experience completely wrecked me and destroyed me, and I started alcoholically drinking immediately following that. And my perception was that I wasn't an alcoholic, even though my family began calling me an alcoholic about 2 years later, because my alcoholism didn't look like those that were in my life that had been alcoholics. Both my grandfathers were alcoholics, and kind of my drinking or how I was conducting myself looked very different than theirs. I thought that somebody that was alcoholic was homeless and on the street. And if you had that experience, my thought was that you would drink every day too. And it got really, really bad, because of the experience when I was getting drunk, where previously I was fun and lighthearted. I was either raging or I was sobbing because I couldn't talk about it without being drunk. I did not press charges. I have seen different things in the news where the victim is on trial, and I didn't want to put myself through that. I did get some free services for counseling and therapy, and I very candidly told the therapist, this nonprofit supports people that are survivors of what I went through, and also other things that people have gone through. And I let them know that we're going to have to go to a bar, or I'm going to have to bring alcohol to talk to it. In January of 2024 is when this experience happened, and in January 2026 is when my family began to call me an alcoholic. And when I said I was an alcoholic, I meant it. Like, I was in denial at that time that I was an alcoholic. And what it did for me, that experience, was pretty much put gasoline on a fire. I think in kind of like looking back, that I would have been an alcoholic no matter what. But that expedited the process. And in July 31st, 2006 was my original sobriety date. And I ended up in an inpatient facility for what I thought was going to be a trauma track. I went into an inpatient facility for my trauma, to process the trauma. And when you get to a facility, there is, at times, you're going to go to what's called a medical stabilization unit, where they want to make sure that you're not going to have any type of withdrawal effects from whatever you're on. And so they loaded me up with literature, and I wasn't in the population and doing, kind of different activities on a day-to-day. I was stuck there for 4 days. And one of the books they handed me was the big book, and I was bored. I had nothing to do, so I began reading it. And there were stories that I was reading in there that really shocked me, because I'm like, oh my God, they're in my head. These things that I thought, I was alone in my thinking pattern, or the way I was, drinking alcohol. I thought I was on an island by myself. And then I read step 1, which is in AA, which says that we are powerless over alcohol and that our life has become unmanageable. And in that moment, the light turned on, because I was keenly aware that if I started drinking, I could not stop. And at that point in time, I'm really grateful. I understood and admitted that I was an alcoholic, and I've never questioned it. I did go then and call my parents. You know, you sometimes get some time to, you know, kind of call people on the outside and let them know that I understood that I was an alcoholic. But from then on, I knew that I would never have a normal relationship. I had gone far past what was a normal relationship with alcohol, in that I could not drink at all. That's a very small part of my story. I'll also talk about how I learned I was a drug addict, as I am one too. Thank you for listening. And if I can, you can too.